Alright, so welcome to Talks with Tay. This is Talks with Tay Live. This is the first one.
We're live?
We're live, baby.
Nobody told me that.
Yeah, so again, I have amazing guests here that I wanted to interview you guys. And because I'm inspired by what you guys are doing, I know I interviewed Darius, but pretty much have grown up with Dominique. We played ball against each other since high school. Darius, we went to high school together, Georgetown. Melanie, we go way back, Lady Turbs. And then Jameson, we come from the same area, WCAC, and we work together in the professional sports industry with the Junior Wizards. So you guys are doing great things, and I know I sent you guys the questions, but we're just gonna talk. All right, we're just gonna open up. It's just gonna be like what you saw on the trailer. So first question for all you guys, for people who may not know who you are, who are you, where are you from, and what's your background. So we're just gonna go down.
Ooh, I'm first. I'm not first and last.
You dressed the best. So.
Stop it, Mr. Good.
Come on now.
I'm Dominique Johnson. I'm from Laurel, Maryland, PG County side. And I am a former basketball player. I'm currently a teacher. I hold basketball camps for the youth. And yes, before I hand it off, we're pretty honored to be by Mrs. Tay Brown here herself. So give it up for Miss Tay.
Hi, everybody. I got a nickname up here called Mr. Good. So I guess that's my name for today. I am the son of Stephanie and Garrett. I'm a triple Virgo. I found that out about a week and a half ago. I don't know. What are the fun facts?
Mr. Good.
I'm a vegetarian. I beat Tay in a one-on-one basketball game once upon a time.
You did.
When I'm not out having fun and taking long walks down the beach, I think some people would consider me an entrepreneur, specifically one that focuses on social impact. More so, I have a organizational goal at Good that we're going to transition 500 families out of poverty by 2030. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm in comedy. I did some acting once. What else do you guys want to know?
So I'm Melanie Royster. Again, I used to play against Taylor Brown and Dominique here, WCDC. There's some other basketball players out there too as well. That's not good. I'm just saying.
So good.
Nobody saw that. Still later. Okay. So I actually used to play for. I used to play for Seton, I played basketball at VCU. I actually studied art school there too as well. Thank you. I appreciate it. I always do embarrassing things. That's okay.
It's perfectly fine.
Exactly. Right now I'm in home improvement, home remodeling, and I'm also doing interior design on the side with my own business right now. So, yeah.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jameson Martinez. My nickname is
Mr. Saturday.
Mr. Saturday.
Saturday night.
Mr. Saturday Night.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm named after whiskey. Similar to everyone here, born and raised in Washington, D.C. area. I am a WCAC guy. That's where my foundation started with basketball. What I do right now is I'm the coordinator for youth basketball of the Washington Wizards. So what I do is the Junior NBA and Junior Wizards and all of the NBA franchises are beginning to transition into what we call soccer academies. How in world soccer, you have teams that you can basically, a 9-year-old could sign to an academy, to a professional team, and go to school and get his education through an academy. The NBA is making that transition in about 10 years or less. I coach basketball and soccer. I have a USA basketball license as well as a USA soccer license. So when I started this job, one of the big things was we're looking to transition and build a youth program to show that when that transition is ready to be made, because it's a big transition with the NCAA and what they're going to do and paying athletes and things like that, sooner or later they'll be able to get people into high school, into academy sooner. But again, born and raised in the area. I'm a DeMatha graduate. In fact, Quinn Cook and I, who you saw in some of the videos, and I went to high school together. I was a manager on the team when he was a junior. One of the best guys I've seen come out of DeMatha and in this area. Afterwards, I went to the University of Maryland, was on staff there as a student manager, graduate assistant, and operations assistant under Mark Turgeon. Some of the best years of my life. I'm a Terp till I die. Go Terps. We took a loss today, but we're still in the first place in Big Ten. So, but that's my background a little bit and what I do, and I'm really happy to be here. Taylor and I work together with the Junior Wizards. We do a lot in youth basketball, a lot of grassroots stuff, and she has been a great help with us at the Junior Wizards and helping us expand, grow. Our program's growing every year, and she's been a great addition, especially for our young female basketball players, which we don't have a lot of female staff for some of our camps, and Taylor has been great. So we're really happy to be here. So.
Sorry, a little awkward pass. All right, so one thing we all share in common here, I know we're all very humble, but we've all gone to WCAC private schools in the DMV area. So from Holy Cross, Bishop McNamara, Elizabeth Seton, and DeMatha High School. Let's talk about that. What was it like? And then I know Dominique went to Riverdale Baptist, so I'm gonna ask you about that. But let's talk about that. What was that like going to a WCAC school in this area?
So I went to Holy Cross, the Academy of the Holy Cross, for the years of 2008 to 2011, before transferring to finish out my senior year at Riverdale Baptist. To be honest with you, obviously I got exposed to the WCAC due to basketball. My home school was Laurel High School, so if all else failed, not being seen, I would have went to Laurel High School. My time at Holy Cross, if you guys don't know, it's an all-girls school. So within that whole dynamic of going from public to private, I went to an all-girls school, which was unheard of, especially where I'm from. And so, just getting an opportunity to get that Catholic education just shows and proves that, one, that my basketball ability could get me anywhere that I put my mind to it. At that time, in the WCAC, Holy Cross was in competition with Bishop McNamara, with Elizabeth Seton, with Good Counsel. So it was always a battle, and just playing in that environment was just amazing. To sold out games, like our gyms were really small, especially at Elizabeth Seton and Holy Cross. So the nights when Gonzaga and DeMatha played, to just see that support and to see our fans come out with another rival game, it was just amazing. So, that was my WCAC experience.
Okay. I just know if it was one of those deals, is everybody answering every question or skipping over?
If you like, you don't have to.
All right, cool. I'll get in there. Thank you.
Bishop McNamara, yes.
The WCAC for me, I think was a great experience. Not a thing, I know it was a great experience. And it's one of those experiences that I didn't really appreciate in my life till maybe like 2-3 years ago. Very well into adulthood. When you're in such a rigid environment as the Catholic education system, I started high school when I was 13, and here I am transitioning into this space, and it's like all of these rules. They want me to wear a blazer every day. You gotta put your tie on. What do you mean I can't leave after I'm done with my classes for the day? Like, there's all of these different structures in place that any kid is kind of rebelling against. But now being an adult, especially in the work that I do that requires so much structure, it prepared me in ways that I could have never realized at that point in my life.
It's actually funny because it was between Bishop McNamara and Seton for me. It's actually funny why I went to Seton. My best friend actually begged me to go to Seton. Best friend since I was 5 years old actually begged me to go to Seton. She's like, the basketball team is great. I was also involved in a lot of other things like the art program. I also did band. I was involved in a lot of different things, and she was listing out all the good things that Seton had to offer. And I was like, okay, it's my best friend, so on. And I'm actually really glad that she did kind of plant that seed in my head. Going to Elizabeth Seton actually changed my life. completely. If I did not go there, I would be in a whole different space. Even to this day, I still probably have a really collective group of women, because it's an all-girls school too as well, but the bonds that I built there, I could at least say there's 40 people from high school that I could like literally hit up and be like, I'm doing this, and so on. They're like, oh, that's great, I'm doing this. Like, the bonds that I built there was really important, and especially because even now, seeing like what everybody else is doing after school, like they're really trying to impact the community, so on. So I was really glad that I was a part of that. And then also the other part of it is how intense. So I did go to Catholic school from kindergarten, so I'm kind of used to kind of the structure, so on. Even St. Ambrose was a little bit more structured than CN. But it was more intense because basketball for me was more just fun. Like I just liked to run around, so on. But once I went to CN, I joined the varsity team my freshman year, and they were intense. Like I got kind of, not like hazed, but like kind of bullied. Like, you know, you're the only freshman and everybody's mostly juniors, seniors, and they're like, who is this girl? It's intense. And just kind of understanding like kind of the rivalry and so on, and not more so like because, we have to beat them and so on, but the importance of team and so on that I got from season 2 as well. So it's not all about fun and games, it's really understanding other people, how they work, how we do things as a team. And I feel like that's really impacted me, especially even with my career now, because I have to understand people and so on to do what I do right now. So I feel like just from seeing to now, it's really been impactful, and I couldn't see it in any other way. So.
For me, DeMatha was a life changer the minute I got there. I had been in private school prior to since kindergarten, but DeMatha was strictly, for me, it was a basketball decision at a young age. It was like, I want to go be a part of that legacy that Coach Wooten had put at DeMatha. And my parents, on the other hand, were like, well, I had grown up being involved in music, so I ended up attending DeMatha on a music scholarship. I was a French horn player. I auditioned on piano, became a French horn player, and I also sang in the Voices of DeMatha as a vocalist, so I got a vocal scholarship there. But my whole focus was basketball, and my life-changing experience there was my sophomore year retreat. We had retreats each year until your senior year, and at my sophomore retreat, no other than Morgan Wooten sat there and spoke to us, and he gave his famous speech in his 4 Pillars to Life, God, Family, School, Basketball. And I found myself to this day preaching that to those kids that I coach to this day. And that speech he gave to us that day about how, you know, if you can score 100 points, that's great, you know, but if you can't read or write or understand how to sign your contract, that's a problem. And it really instilled in me much more serious I had to take life, because at DeMatha I didn't mess around a little bit, didn't take things seriously, and, you know, almost found myself not continuing there. But I got it together, and, you know, believe it or not, one talk with Coach Wooten, a retired coach who took the time to sit and talk to anybody, he talked to me and said, you know, you're fortunate to be in this position. Be blessed that you're here. Take advantage of every opportunity, because you're gonna go far. And to this day, I can honestly tell you, when applying to basketball jobs, or even before I got the Wizards job, like looking for a basketball job, the fact that DeMatha is listed on my resume and DeMatha basketball is there changed everything for me. You know, automatically coaches will sit down and say, you're a DeMatha guy, you're a part of their program, you're one of Mike Jones, who was my coach there now, who played for Coach Wooten. You're one of Jones's guys. In fact, I just met with, before coming here, I just had a meeting/interview with USA Basketball about working with them in the future. And how did I get there? They said, oh, he's one of DeMatha guys. So that right there says alone of why DeMatha really had a huge impact on my life, not just in basketball, but in life, from academics to music to everything. It really set my foundation for me as a coach today, and being a head coach of a major D1 program or NBA team in the future. So.
Great. All right, so now we did 2 general group questions. We're going to break it down to some individual questions. All right, so we're going to get right to it. And feel free, if you want to comment on somebody's individual question, say, hey, like, you know, I want to follow up with that or whatever. So, Damo, first. So first thing about Dominique, she's she does a lot in our community with helping the youth. She coaches young girls, helps develop their skills, and she's a very good life coach. A lot of the girls I know always speak highly of me, and they're like, "Yeah, I know Damo." Like, you know, you're really, really looked up to by the young girls in the community. So she's also a coach, but she has a great basketball background. She's played at Towson University. She had a stellar career, and she also has played overseas basketball. So Dom, I want to ask you, you know, first question is, what was that experience like coming out of college, you know, trying to grind and get the opportunity to play professionally overseas? And, you know, how was your experience overseas? So we'll just go from there, and then we'll talk about like your coaching.
So, you know, my high school career, I went from Holy Cross, and then because of an unfortunate situation at Holy Cross with financials, I had to figure out what was my next step. So that led the opportunity of playing under Coach Diane Richardson at Riverdale Baptist. You know, throughout my whole high school career, I was playing with girls who were nationally ranked. I was playing with girls who, you know, unlike me, I was like the underdog. And I don't say it when people think of the underdog, they think of like, you know, probably the negative connotation, but I loved it. So when I transferred from Holy Cross to Riverdale Baptist, I ended up being with a large senior class. And then, you know, with one being in the WNBA right now, two of them, you know, basically getting drafted when we all graduated from college. You know, playing with those group of girls, and my former teammate is actually right in front of me. And playing under Diane Richardson was just a different feel. I got to explore the world as a 17-year-old, and we had basically a college type of schedule. And that's when it really hit me, like, not only did basketball could open so many doors, but to learn and to be taught by one of the greats out of the DMV area, who's now coaching at my alma mater now, just says a lot. So being able to play with, you know, exponential like basketball players, we all received a scholarship. And every practice, there was like over like 10 coaches just watching us practice. And for whatever reason, half of them probably didn't even offer us. They were just there to see the talent that was coming out of the DMV area. So that right there like instilled so much confidence. And it was okay that, you know, we had big D1 girls that graduated, but me going to the mid-major, I had so much pride in that. You know, I remember my first letter being Maryland. And, you know, a letter doesn't necessarily mean an offer, but just to be recognized was like really huge. So I went on to Towson. You know, it came down to James Madison, Seton Hall, Cincinnati at one point, and then it was Towson. And given my situation from Holy Cross to Riverdale, a lot of schools backed off. One, because I couldn't get my transcripts released because of the financial situation, and it was just all bad. So you're talking to a 17-year-old and not really knowing what depression was, but just trying to figure out, like, my senior year starts in 3 weeks. What am I gonna do? So when I got the opportunity to go to Towson, we were at the bottom of the barrel almost every single year. But I was playing against, you know, girls that came from University of North Carolina, you know, big time name from Chicago. And it was just like to learn and being able to be put in a situation where I had to like grow up. And all these talents and these girls was playing before me, I had to lead a team as a point guard. And that's a lot of pressure.
Right.
So, you know, having the years that I had at Towson, and then playing that waiting game when I graduated to go overseas, I got picked up in the middle of the season.
Yeah.
You know, we talk about no's, and there were so many no's with agents. So at one point, you want to give up, but then your love is it just continues. Like, love never dies. And for me, the love for the game just was always there.
Yeah.
And so I ended up having an agent reach out to me. And within that same week, 2 days later, he said, you have to pack your bags.
Yeah.
So I packed my bags, and then the next day I was on a flight, an 18-hour flight to Romania. And just being able to have the opportunity.
Right.
You don't really hear that much coming out of Towson. But, you know, with that, just the grind never stops. When you want something, you just gotta put your feet on the gas. And no matter what roadblocks you get, you know, you gotta handle your business. And then it was at the end of my season, and I had the opportunity to go to Germany.
Yeah.
Got denied because of a situation that happened in Romania, and we talked about it.
Yeah.
But I got sexually assaulted, and that put a halt to me even thinking about going overseas. And then on that flight back, had a conversation with a elder lady from Georgia, and she told me, like, when that ball stops dribbling, like, what's your next move? Her not even knowing what happened to me. And I knew that my love for the youth and what basketball did to me and what lessons it taught me, I just wanted to pour out to the kids. So now I'm here,
Yeah.
and it's just been a beautiful journey.
Yeah.
Hard one, but beautiful.
Right. Man. Let's give her a round of applause. Thank you for sharing the story. That was beautiful. And Darius, the next question, great lead into, you know, what I want to ask you. So if you guys don't know about Darius, he does amazing things in the community. He helps a lot of kids in Washington, D.C., you know, people that are homeless. He helps kids that may not have, you know, what we had growing up. And Darius is a very humble guy. He's a man of service. Went to Georgetown University, and he came out of college saying, I'm going to serve, I'm going to help other people. But one thing I want to ask you, Darius, I know we did our interview, and I asked you a couple questions, but I want to ask you, I remember when I reached out to you, and in the email, you were saying that, you know, you needed like a break, you know, like for mental health. If you'd like to talk about that time where you just took a break from your business and you kind of reset, you know, to get back, you know, so you just want to talk about mental health.
Yeah, so again, my name is Darius Baxter. Oh my gosh, that was an interesting time in my life. September 12th, 2019, I take a plane to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and I link up with 22 members of my family, and we spend the entire weekend together. Monday morning, we drive from South Carolina to IAD Dulles Airport. I get on a flight and I take I'm pretty sure it was not 18 hours, but I take a flight to Nairobi, Kenya. Once I landed in Nairobi, it was about 4 a.m. in the morning. That started what became a 2-month process for me, where I completely disconnected from work, family, friends, the internet, really any responsibility. Why did I go on that trip? I have been truly blessed in my life, if I can be completely honest with you. If you know a little bit about my story, you know that as a child I experienced a very high level of trauma. And working with children now helps me understand just how trauma can affect the development of a young person. And what I found myself faced with as I went in really into the first half of my 20s was now being out in the world by myself. I had more money than I knew what to do with. I had the ability to travel around, not just the country, but around the world, and do some amazing things. I was being hoisted on stages and on televisions, at times in front of millions of people. And from every account, the world viewed me as a successful person. But for some reason, on September 12th, 2019, as my 26th birthday approached, all I wanted to do in that moment was kill myself. Why was that? Because despite all of the success that I had from the outside world, I was not personally happy. I was reckless in many ways because I couldn't come to grips with this thing that is commonly referred to as imposter syndrome. Like, I continue to ask myself, why me? Why do I deserve these things? I have family that are struggling. I have my mom want to do all these things for her. I'm dealing with young people. We ran a juvenile justice program for the mayor of DC for about 3 years. So I'm seeing young people getting gunned down on almost a weekly basis that I just had conversations with. And I'm conflicted and I'm torn. And to be honest, it was starting to catch up to me. And I was acting out in so many different ways, but so secretively. Like, here I was going into work every day. Here I was having the opportunity to do all these amazing things, raising millions of dollars, but knowing that every night I would go home and be lonely. And I was doing things consciously and unconsciously to destroy myself. So it was after two of my really close friends who had been with me throughout the entire journey, also two young black men, they both ended up having to go to rehab. And it was in that moment, as I was kind of dealing with and processing them going through their demons, that I had to ask myself, you are the sum of the people that you spend the most time with. And without even realizing it, all of us had made excuses for ourselves to not deal with trauma that we experienced growing up in this country as young black men and the things that we had to deal with. So I took a bold step. I knew I didn't want to go to rehab, but I knew that I needed to disconnect. So I left. I left and really didn't care what I was leaving behind. But over the course of 2 months, traveling again in Africa, having the opportunity to spend time in some of the hardest slums in the world. I don't know if you guys are familiar, Nairobi, Kenya has some of the largest, if not the largest, population of refugees in the world. And I'm proud to say that my family has a school now in Nairobi based on that trip. We support several hundred kids there. But took that from Africa, headed to the States, traveled by train, just checking in and what poverty looked like around this country. And then finished up the journey in Colombia, specifically in the Barranquilla region. But throughout that journey, just found so much confidence and realized that, like, in those lowest moments where I felt like I was by myself, just getting back to the States, realizing without even telling anybody how many messages and how many calls the people were checking in on me and asking me how I was and what they could do to help me. I'm sorry I'm getting a little long-winded. I'll end on this. I think the thing that I realized most throughout that process, and if I can use that moment in my life as a testimony for anybody in this room, is that oftentimes we find ourselves in the quietness of our own hearts acting out in the hope that people will notice that we're hurting or that we're broken. And I'm here to tell you, they don't notice. Everybody has things that are going on in their lives. Everybody has struggles and everybody has pains, and oftentimes that can blind us from seeing the pain and the hurt in other people's eyes. I would tell you the best thing that I've gained throughout this experience is just articulating my pain to others. And in that moment, giving them permission more than anything to be able to be a support and a service for me. And that has truly changed my life in ways that I could not have thought or imagined 365 days ago. So that is my answer to your question, Ms. Brown.
That's awesome. Thank you. All right, so Melanie, my question for you is, I remember when we got out of college and we was just like, man, like, it's hard. Like, I could barely, get $5 this week. Like, we was just struggling. But I want to ask you, what was that transition like coming out of college as a D1 athlete, full scholarship, then you're transitioning into a new career? I mean, and you've done it, you excelled at it, and you showed that you created your own brand, your own identity, and you became an interior designer. Talk about that transition and where you are now.
So from when I was little, I know I was involved in like just being like in design art from when I was little, even before I got into sports. 3 years old, drawing on walls. Like my parents were really good at like letting me express myself. And then in school, you know, I was still very active. I like running around, so on. And I had a lot of friends who were like, "You need to be playing basketball." You know, I'm having growth spurts. Everybody's like, "You need to be playing basketball," so on. And I was also involved in like a lot of different activities, like track, so on. You need to be playing basketball. And myself, I'm like, I just want to draw all day. Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
So my parents, because I was really quiet, I was very timid. A lot of conversations with other family members, so on. They're like, get her involved in sports. This would be a good way to like kind of bring her out of her, you know, so on. So they put me in camp, maybe when I was like 6, 7. And I was very timid. And I will say what really got me involved in sports, there was this girl, she was, what do they call them? Camp supporter, counselor. Yeah. So she took a liking to me. She said, for some reason, I don't know why she's talking to a 6-year-old like this, you remind me a lot of myself when I was younger. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. I know what it means now. But she was really invested that summer. And she saw that I was actually pretty talented for like a young age, and that she saw a lot of potential. And she was expressing to me why I should involve myself in multiple different things.
Right.
I was like, I just want to draw all day. I want to just do this all day. And she's like, but you're good at this too. Why not do this as well, right? You could be multifaceted. You could do different things. I don't know why she used all these big words on me. I remember it when I was younger. I don't know why she talked to me like this. Maybe I was mature for my age. I don't know. But she really supported me in just like bringing it out of me. Like, use this opportunity to really just put yourself out there. 'Cause I was timid. I did not talk to nobody. I used to get even in trouble at recess in kindergarten. I didn't want to go outside. So I used to be that type of person. And now you can talk to anybody. I'll talk to anybody. I'll go up to anybody, talk to them. It doesn't matter. But I feel like sports really brought me out of that, especially to prepare me for this moment. And sorry, you have to remind me the question again. Can you repeat it?
Talk about the transition from
Transition,
college.
sorry.
Yeah.
So I've always been that person where it's like, okay, so I really started getting involved in basketball. So it got to that point, especially freshman year of high school. The coach was like, you know, you could play on a full scholarship. I'm like, I don't know what that means. Like, free. Like, you don't have to pay tuition. I'm like, oh, like, how does that happen? Like, my parents, they were involved in sports. My dad wasn't really a sports person. My mom's from Jamaica. Basketball wasn't a thing. So they didn't really know, where a lot of my friends that had that support with their parents, where they're like, you know, you play basketball, so on. My parents were just like, have fun, like, so on, right? So I'm having this conversation as a freshman in high school, and they're like, you play professionally, so on. But I'm like, in my head, I still know that I wanted to impact people through my designs and art. But I love basketball too, and I love the bonds I made with teammates. So how does that work when I am getting recruited in college? So I will say, which I guess it's a humble thing, I was getting recruited by a lot of colleges. And you could ask a lot of people, it was like a lot of offers, very overwhelming for me, because my parents didn't know how to handle it. I feel like a lot of people had supports with their parents when it came to that. My parents didn't know what to do. We're like, how many visits do we go on? We were really depending a lot on my coaches in high school. And I'm like, okay, so I'm getting all these offers. And in my head, I already knew that I'm probably not playing basketball after college, because I was really passionate about design and what I could do for people outside of that.
Right.
However that looked. I didn't know what it looked like yet, but I know that it would be something. So I go to VCU, I go on VCU's campus. I never heard of VCU, ever. And I'm driving, we're like approaching the campus, and all I see is VCU Arts. And I'm like, okay, what is this? I've already been on like maybe 3 visits already. I'm just like, okay, the team's good, so on, but I'm seeing VCU Arts. So I'm like Googling it on my phone. #1, public art school, right? And you know, I'm looking at the team, I'm seeing how good they are, but still in the back of my head, I'm like, VCU Arts, right? So I'm like, how does this make it fit for me? So I'm like, okay, so there's a school, the coaches could use, like, they definitely needed a lot of help when it came, because I was a defensive player. Everybody could tell, like, defense was my thing, like, averaging 4 blocks, 5 blocks a game, that was me. And they definitely needed that. They needed bigger post presence, but I'm like, they also have the art school. This is still in the back of my head. And I feel like I took that whole time, because anybody could ask you can ask my teammates, doing art school and basketball at the same time, Janelle, is not, it's hard. Pulling all-nighters 10 days in a row and still going to practice that morning, Like, you could have team, like, I look delirious, but I still had it, especially being a team captain and so on. So I feel like I took that time really to, like, how do I want to impact people? So I'm a nurturer. Like, that's a big thing. I always want to feel like I'm impacting people. And I always thought about, especially when I was getting closer to the end of, like, my basketball career, and that's from ACL freshman year, so I did grad school too. So I was really fortunate to do my grad program, which is sport leadership. So basically focusing, like, especially on sports, but your leadership. How do you want to impact the world? They were really big on that. More than sports, but like, how do you want to impact? And it was really nice that the teachers kind of made it more specific for me, because they knew that I didn't want to be a sports manager or anything. But that transition. So when I graduated from grad school, you know, originally I wanted to do sport facility design or facility management, but then I realized shortly that there's really small funding when it comes to sport facility design. You have to know a lot of people. It's really, even I had a job lined up from fall of grad school, and they're like, yeah, you'll be sent to Dallas, you'll learn this, you'll start making this. And then as soon as I'm, like, you know, graduated, 2 weeks later, they're like, oh, we put that funding in healthcare, which healthcare is really big when it comes to firms, so on. And I'm like, okay, so I'm out of a job. And I thought I was going to be doing sport facility management, because I did do an internship where I designed for the basketball facility that came up at VCU. So I was a part of the design process, so on. So I'm like, I'm going to be doing this for life. So when that kind of fell through my fingers, right after, like 2 weeks after I graduated, I'm like, okay, so what do I do after this? So I kind of had to regroup, kind of spent that summer where I didn't work. That was probably the funnest summer. Even though I had no money, I still traveled everywhere. I had money saved from, like, stipends and so on from school, and I was just like, I'm really gonna find myself. I'm really gonna figure out, you know, what I'm gonna do here. So I kind of got into residential design. My first job at Bassett, actually, we worked together, but yeah. So my first job at Bassett, so kind of just come out of the first dip into design. I knew that I really want to be design, and even from now, starting to hear is, how do I impact people with this? So even now, I'm still figuring out my, of course I can make things look pretty, I could change this whole room around, right? But how does this impact people? So even now, I'm still figuring out how, even for the younger people, because I still have people my age that are like, when I have my house, you're gonna design it. And I feel like it's really big for us now, especially when we're all growing, that you need to be in a space that's gonna help you grow and that's gonna help motivate you. Don't wait till you're making that, because I'm like, at that point, you just want the pretty house. Right now, you need to be in a space that's gonna help you become that person. So I'm really trying to focus more, especially in my demographic, like my age, where you definitely, I have so many friends where I'll go into their space and their space is a mess. But you're trying to grow in your career, so there's no possible way that you could become a better person when you're living in a space that's not gonna help motivate you. That's when depression starts, so on, and you can tell when somebody's in a state based off their space. And sometimes that's overlooked, and I'm trying to make that more of a conversation, which my friend, she's an interior designer too, where it needs to be more of a conversation, especially with our space, especially as we're involving with mental health and so on. These conversations need to be had. Like, how does that look for your space? If you need to be comfortable, like, what do you need? It's not about making it pretty, it's about your mental health. It's about making sure that you're in a space that's gonna help you become the best person. So that's like where I'm at right now. Okay. I'm really fortunate. I'm home improvement right now, where I can transform those type of spaces for people, and I'm just trying to grow from there.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
that was long.
Thank you, Melanie. All right, Jameson, my question for you is, so for us right here, we're athletes, play college, you know, football, basketball, but for you, you were the manager. And I want you to talk about that. You know, what's it like to be a manager for a top program, University of Maryland? And then you went up in the program. You know, you ended up being the assistant of operations for the University of Maryland men's basketball team. So if you can just talk about that experience, you know, what was like, how did that help you with your career now? And what was that experience like for you?
So my experience as being a manager, started at DeMatha. So at DeMatha, your freshman year, you're gonna know who's gonna make it in DeMatha basketball and who's not. Every freshman learns it very quickly. We were still at the old gym. They have a brand new facility now, but we were still in the old DeMatha gym, and 100 guys tried out freshman year for the freshman team. 100. I lied to you not. It was 100 guys. Only 17 make it. So you learn then and there, if you didn't play summer league, your chances of, if you didn't play 8th grade, your 8th grade year you graduate, then going into your 9th grade year, they have a summer league. If you weren't connected there already, like Victor Oladipo was, like Jerry and Grant, like Quinn and those guys, they played summer league coming in. If you didn't play, your chances of making it were very limited. I tried out, made it to the final cut. They said, we think there are just people here who are a lot more talented than you. And so would you like to be a manager? And I said, sure. I wanted to stay around the program. Got to my sophomore year for JV, tried out again. We had about, I would say 50 guys tried out for JV. Because again, you knew at that moment, if you didn't make freshman, the chances of you making JV or varsity are very slim. Didn't make JV, but stayed on as a manager. Junior, senior year, I did attempt to try out for varsity, but Coach Jones kind of cut trials really short, and nobody made it after trials that year. I don't even think anybody walked on that year. And to remind you, by the time I'm in my senior year, my whole starting five, which was Quinn Cook, Victor Oladipo, Jerry Grant, Mikael Hopkins, and James Robinson, they're all professional basketball players. One of them's a two-time NBA champion, Quinn Cook, and the other's an NBA All-Star, Victor Oladipo, who, by the way, is the hardest worker I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. He's the hardest worker I've ever been around in terms of basketball player, period. So, around my junior, senior year, Coach Jones and I talked, and I said, I kind of have a thing for this coaching thing. Coach, how is this? And he looked at me and said, yeah, don't get into coaching. But he said as a joke, and then he said, do you want to manage in college? I said, yeah. And went in for an interview at Maryland with Dustin Clark. He was the director of basketball operations at the time. And I had my first practice. They have manager tryouts and all that, and had my first practice, and that was intense.
What does that consist of?
How quick can you run, rebound, get the ball, make sure you don't mess up a drill. You mess up a drill, get out. Coach will yell at you. If you mess up a drill again, just sit down. If you mess up again, just leave the gym. Like, it was very intense. And Coach Turgeon was coming in on it was 2013 when I had transferred into Maryland. I went to Montgomery first before I transferred into Maryland after high school. Had to do some finding myself for a little bit because I didn't know if I wanted to stay in sports. Transferred into Maryland after my associates. First year under Mark Turgeon, 2013-2014. Horrible season. That season was horrible. Year before, we just missed the NCAA tournament by one game. I think if they had beat North Carolina ACC tournament one more time, we would have made the tournament the year before. Alex Len had just left. He was the lottery pick in the NBA. We were, Maryland basketball the year we were projected to do very well. Horrible season. And that's where that was an eye-opener for me just as a manager, because it was like, okay, this is what it's like to lose. Because at DeMatha, we won everything. Right. I mean, we lost some games, but we won everything. Yeah. I didn't have a bad season while I was there, being a manager. So we finished second to last in the ACC or third to last in the ACC that year. It was our last year in the ACC. We were going to the Big Ten next year. Toxic environment. That year we had 5 players transfer out of the program at Maryland. New players came in, led by Melo Trimble, turned the program all the way around. Finished second in the Big Ten that year. Things were a lot better because that year before in the ACC, it was rough. I mean, even things were taken out on the managers. I was like, geez, how do I deal with this? I've never had to deal with this adversity. What can I do as a manager to make the program better? Yeah. But then I asked those right questions. I found that coach in Mark Turgeon and some of the assistant coaches to say, as a coach, when you're facing this adversity, what do you do? Because I'm aspiring to be a coach one day. What is it that I can learn from you to help me learn with this adversity? I said, if I was coaching this team right now, I wouldn't know what to do. I wouldn't know how to get the chemistry back together. I wouldn't know how to even run a practice correctly. And Coach Turgeon was like, it all goes back to the basics. It all goes back into buying into the system. It's all about saying, Melo Trimble has to learn to play with Dion Wiley. That has to learn to play with Jared Nickens. That has to learn to play with Des Wells. It can't just be I have my own agenda. I'm gonna be Des Wells and drop 25 points a game or be the leading scorer and call it a day. No, he had to learn to work with Melo Trimble, who was an All-American, who blew up his freshman year, who really led the way that year for that team, and he had to learn how to work with them, along with the coaching staff.
Right.
Each coach has to learn that, and one of the things I learned is being a manager and then a graduate assistant as I transitioned to a graduate assistant. Coaches aren't just coaches, they're psychologists. They really are. Some of the best coaches are psychologists. You have to really learn to understand your players in order to guide them. And your staff as well. Your staff's not gonna always have a great day. Some coaches have come in and have had horrible days. They have families, they have kids. I've had rough days as a GA. I had exams, I had papers, I had this. There were days I didn't wanna go to practice, but I had to be there and give my A game. Because what if, I'm doing well in practice, I'm performing my duties well in practice and helping a player get better in a drill, help them do well in the game. It's the little things that really help them get better. So overall, my journey from manager at DeMatha to manager at Maryland to graduate assistant, then to ops assistant, having a paid position, each step of the way I learned something new and I learned something different that helped me along the way. But more importantly, it wasn't until I became closer to a graduate assistant that Coach Warren, Cliff Warren, who's now at Georgia State, he kind of pulled me to the side and said, "You really want to get into this coaching game?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "No, you don't." And I said, "Yeah." And he was like, "No, you don't." He's like, "Don't get into coaching." And I was like, "Really?" He was like, "No, if you really want to do it, it's a lot of work, and it's a lot to learn. It's a lot to transition to. It's a lot of time on the road." Every recruit visit we had, I was there. I felt like I was the coach recruiting the kid. He was like, "You have to be ready for that. You have to be ready to, suck up to parents and kids and AAU is not a joke." So, and I hated AAU. I played AAU growing up. I really hated it. But my journey through that to where I am today, there were times where I was like, "Why am I doing this? This sucks. I didn't think it would be this way. Why? And there were people who got above me. There was a guy who was a manager with me, who, no disrespect to him, I felt I was more qualified to be the GA. I was knocked off from being the GA. They chose somebody else, and I had to be a graduate manager. I stuck it out being a graduate manager for another year just so I could be a GA again, so I could prove it to myself that I could make it, and prove to the coaches that I could make it. That day that happened, that actually hurt me really bad. That was one of the low points of my life. Because I was like, am I not good enough, coach? Like, I've been with you since day one, along with that exodus of players that left after our last year in the ACC, we had 4 managers quit. They had been a part of the program for 3 years since Turgeon got there. We had other staff leave, Turgeon does not like quitters. No coach does. But Turgeon was like, once you're gone, you're gone. Then we start winning in the Big Ten, everybody wants to come back. Some of those managers who were still in school there. And so when I didn't become the GA at that moment, I felt hurt. I was like, Coach Turgeon, you preach loyalty, I was loyal to you. Like, what did I do wrong? But I sucked it up, I stuck it out. And next thing you know, he asked me to be the GA the next year. And I took it, and I did my 1-year grad program. And from there, it was like, okay, well, what do I do next? And coach said, we'll keep you on staff, until you get your footing and figure it out. Because just like playing, coaching is not easy. Like, getting into coaching is not an easy task. It is a very network and who you trust. And nowadays, you'll hear, we have a running joke among coaches and among basketball players, you probably know it too. You don't need to be a basketball coach to be a basketball coach, if that makes sense. You don't need to know basketball to be a basketball coach anymore. You could just, I could know Diamond Stone's father's brother, third cousin twice removed, something like that. Yeah. And I will be sitting on the Maryland bench. That's how easy it is nowadays. It is very, very easy. That NCAA scandal that took place a few years ago with Adidas and Nike and the money, that's all that is. It's literally this person knew this person that knew this person, and Adidas said, oh, as long as you get this kid to go to this school, and when he decides to leave, he signs this contract with us, that's it. That's literally what it is. And it was hard. I mean, even having DeMatha on my resume, even Coach Jones, it was just really, really hard. And before I got the Wizards job, I was preparing to go into the Air Force Reserves as an officer. And because I was like, you know what, I majored in national security, maybe this sports thing is not working out. I hit the end of the road. Like, I applied to jobs, I reached out to all NBA franchises, I reached out to several of the Power 5 conference schools in college basketball. I used every connection I had to get a job, and everybody was like, well, we'll get back to you, we'll let you know, or, you know, we don't have this position open, that position. So it was hard, it was tough. And I kind of got down on myself and said, you know, maybe basketball, this is not for me. Maybe this coaching thing is not where I really, you know, need to go. And then what woke me up really was another trip to the Dominican Republic, which is where my dad's from, and going back to see some of my family. And I didn't want to let them down because a lot of them had to struggle through more times than I ever did. You know, comparing to the life I lived to what they had, you know, it's a different life. And they kind of woke me up to say, all right, just keep pushing, you know, I'm a man of faith, so I prayed on it a lot. And out of the blue, I got 3 job offers. Like that, 2 months later, I got USA Soccer offered me a position, the Wizards offered a position, and National Security Agency had offered me a position.
Wow.
And when I went to interview for the Wizards job, and you know Shannon,
Yeah.
we work with my supervisor. He's a little awkward.
Yeah.
And so I was like, yeah, so is this just for camps and clinics? Like, you know, just for whatever I could do. He was like, no, you're going to be my assistant director of the youth program. You're going to help me run this. And I was like, is this a joke? You know, I kind of asked him. He was like, no. I was like, oh. And I thought about it, prayed on it, talked to my family about it, and did some research on it. And that's when I started connecting the dots about this is going to be an academy. This is where this is going to go. I said, this is something that I've always wanted to be a part of. And I took the job, and I am where I am now. And it's definitely been a journey. But, you know, without my faith, I wouldn't be where I am today. And knowing that I made it, you know, this far, that the sky really is the limit, and that things in the universe don't happen on your time. It happens when the time is right.
Right.
And sometimes you have to go along these bumps, just like we all do in life with everything, to know that and to learn that, to really build that shield of confidence and build up that perseverance to get through. And again, just like players, it's not easy in this coaching world. It's a lot you have to do. You have to have a lot of thick skin too. You know, a lot of thick skin. But that pretty much sums up my journey. Sorry if that was a little long.
Wow, that was great. Thank you. All right, I'd like to open it back up to all of us as a group. So now I want to ask you guys, based on our conversation and even on some of the films that we saw tonight, what resonated with you the most? Or, you know, what would you guys like to share? Any insight or advice you guys would like to give?
Insight in terms of our journey.
Journey, yeah. Anything somebody else said, or the film, anything you'd like to share?
I think, you know, in life, you know, nothing is ever really handed to you. No matter what the identity of that thing is nothing is really ever given to you, because once you got it, the hardest thing is to do is to keep it. Because as quickly as people may seem like it's given to you, you gotta work 10 times harder to keep it, especially if this is something that you want to pursue. So, you know, fast forward into my adulthood, in my career, you know, I never thought that I wanted to be a coach.
Yeah.
Never thought I wanted to be an educator. In fact, I was rebellious as a player and as a student. So for me to be that person to these kids now, it's kind of, I amaze myself with that.
Yeah.
But then that's the thing. Sometimes you have to have something taken away from you to understand that that's really what you want to pursue, and that's something that you desired. So my whole thing in life is you're exactly where you need to be. And you don't need to, like Jameson said, you don't really, it's not your time. It's what the universe gives to you. And as I, you know, read and research and look deeper into myself, I know that You know, it may look hard, but I know, granted with all the blessings, I'm where I'm supposed to be at. And so I just take it for what it is and not for what it isn't.
Right.
And you know, I just move forward day by day with that.
Awesome.
My big takeaway would be talking. It's a good crowd up here. No, I think I got it.
Mr. Good.
We got some reoccurring themes up here. You know, we try to tie it together. I'm a huge believer that going to how you mentioned Faith Jameson. I watched this Quincy Jones documentary on Netflix. It came out like last year. And I remember he said something and it was very quick. And he was talking about how he keeps a notepad next to his bed at night. Because just in case God visits him in his sleep, that he can get up, write the idea down. Because if he doesn't act on it, God will take that vision down the block to somebody else.
All right, now I would like to open it to the audience. If you guys would like to ask any of our panelists any questions, feel free. I'll give you the mic real quick. So think about it. If anybody wants to ask a question, or
I guess I got two things to say. One, what if you could describe one word? You had one word to describe where you are right now in your life and on your journey. What would it be?
Clarity.
Blessed.
It's okay.
I'm probably gonna think about it on my drive home.
You can.
I was gonna be blessed, but
Hey, everybody can be blessed, man.
You can be blessed.
I'm definitely blessed. I feel like it's like a journey. Right now I'm on a journey. I'm still figuring out a lot of where I fit in, especially in a certain career, especially that's male dominated too. So I'm still trying to figure out that journey, that position.